Everyone knows the news. A shooter opened fire at a Trump rally on Saturday, killing one Trump supporter, critically injuring two others, and blowing off part of President Trump's ear, coming within millimeters of killing the former president and current presidential frontrunner on national television. It is the most historically significant event to take place in America since September 11th, 2001. We'll get into the details that have emerged about the shooter, the security failures, the statements from the politicians, and from the Republican National Convention, which starts today in Milwaukee. But first, I want to focus on those millimeters, the hair's breadth that kept President Trump from being assassinated. If you are watching this rather than merely listening, watch Trump's head at the moment the first shot rings out.
Take a look at what happened.
Take a look at what happened. Eerie words from President Trump. When we take a look at what happened, at that moment, we see that just before the first shot rang out, Trump turned his head to the right about 15 or 20 degrees, barely noticeable in real time. A little twitch in his oration, a barely perceptible turn that saved his life. The shooter, firing from 150 yards away, was an excellent shot. Trump keeps his head where it was when the shooter took aim. When the shooter started pulling that trigger, the bullet enters the back of his skull and Trump dies on stage. Trump turns his head just then, just before the shot rings out, just slightly. The bullet goes through his ear. How do you explain that? Few people seem to have noticed that directly behind Trump, only one action other than ducking took place. Two people made the sign of the cross. One man crossed himself after Trump went down. Then a woman crossed herself after Trump got back up.
Hold that in your head, it's bloody.
So we gotta move to the bus. Move to the bus.
Let me get my
Okay, watch out.
Two signs of the cross. One, when you don't know if Trump is okay. One, when he gets back up. Few commentators have observed that the rally began with a benediction by a Catholic priest, Father Jason Charon.
Time of crisis in our nation and in our world, that your Holy Spirit will use this crisis to remind us of the need to get right with you, to rid our relationships with each other, that we will repent of anything that's holding us back, that our relationships being made right in your sight, we might make our nation great again through your grace and your goodness, and making our country great again. Our world may be set right through Christ our Lord. Amen.
After the initial shock wore off, I was reminded of some wisdom from a World War II veteran named Richard Overton, who at the age of 109 made this observation about going into battle.
So when you go in there, you say, well, God got me now. See? He gonna take care of you. If it's your time to go, that bullet gonna get you. If it ain't your time to go, that bullet going over your head. It ain't gonna hit you.
Christians believe that God's providence governs history. We don't always act like it. We worry, we're anxious, we doubt. But our faith tells us that the entire cosmos is finely tuned to account even for our sins, our shortcomings, the abuse of our free will, to give glory to God who has the final say. Even the very hairs of our head are all numbered. Much of the assassination attempt was to be expected. Trump's opponents throughout the media and political class, all the way up to Joe Biden, have spent years comparing Trump to Hitler and claiming that he poses an existential threat to our country, all language commonly understood to justify assassination. It was only a matter of time. What was not expected was the precise moment of the attempt, and what seems impossible, miraculous, was that the attack would occur at the precise moment of that precise movement of Trump's head. It is a moment for profound reflection, not only on politics, but on the ultimate meaning of politics. It is above all a reminder not to fear those who kill the body but cannot kill the soul, but rather to fear him who can destroy both soul and body in hell. Are not two sparrows sold for a farthing? And not one of them will fall to the ground without your Father's will. I'm Michael Knowles. This is The Michael Knowles Show. Welcome back to the show. New footage is emerging. It seems with each new video clip, each new bit of testimony, more questions emerge. We now have video of the shooter spotted by a number of people on the roof, climbing up the roof, minutes before the firing, with a gun. Clearly people reporting this, asking why is Trump still on stage? We will get to all of that in a moment. First, I want to thank our friends over at Zero Debt USA. Go to zapmydebt.com. Does your debt keep you tossing and turning at night? The banking system is designed to trap you in debt. These insanely high interest credit cards and loans make it nearly impossible to pay off your debt. Thankfully, there is a new way out of the debt trap with Zero Debt USA. You've heard me talk about pivotal debt solutions. Well, now they are known as Zero Debt USA. They have new aggressive strategies that can end your debt faster and easier than you thought possible. Zero Debt USA can cut or even eliminate interest. They will help find programs to write off your balances so you owe less. Bottom line is they find every solution possible to end your debt permanently. Before you do anything, contact Zero Debt USA first at zapmydebt.com. Talk to them for free. Find out how fast they can help you get out of debt. Do not allow those nasty phone calls to bother you anymore. Stay up at night worrying about your debt. I know it's a big worry for a lot of people. Just head on over to zapmydebt.com. That is zapmydebt.com today. I went live on Saturday night when this happened. So I was on air for 3 hours covering in real time. It took an hour and a half or so, maybe 2 hours for President Biden to release a statement, some 6-sentence nothing, almost certainly written by staff. And then Biden walked out, gave brief remarks saying basically nothing. And then he said basically nothing again last night from the Oval Office.
I want to speak to you tonight about the need for us to lower the temperature in our politics. And to remember, while we may disagree, we are not enemies. We're neighbors, we're friends, co-workers, citizens, and most importantly, we're our fellow Americans. We must stand together. Yesterday's shooting at Donald Trump's rally in Pennsylvania calls on all of us to take a step back, take stock of where we are, how we go forward from here. Thankfully, former Trump is not seriously injured. I spoke with him last night. I'm grateful. He's doing well, and Jill and I keep him and his family in our prayers.
We need to lower the temperature in our politics, you see, because we're really friends, and that's why we need to unite. And how it is that during the Biden administration, the temperature seems to have risen so high. People have come to view our fellow Americans as enemies. There could be an assassination attempt on a former president and current presidential frontrunner. How could that be? Who raised the temperature of our politics, Joe Biden?
Donald Trump and the MAGA Republicans represent an extremism that threatens the very foundations of our republic.
What, in your view, constitutes the primary threat to freedom and democracy at home?
Donald Trump. Seriously. Donald Trump uses phrases like he's going to eviscerate the Constitution, he's going to be a dictator on day one.
President Biden made the case Donald Trump is an existential threat to our democracy.
This is the first national election since January 6th. Insurrection placed a dagger at the throat of American democracy since that moment. We all know who Donald Trump is. And there's something dangerous happening in America now. There's an extremist movement that does not share the basic beliefs in our democracy. The MAGA movement. He talks about the blood of America as being poisoned, echoing the same exact language used in Nazi Germany.
The Biden campaign released a statement saying, quote, Donald Trump channeled his role models as he parroted Adolf Hitler, praised Kim Jong-un, and quoted Vladimir Putin while running for president on a promise to rule as a dictator and threaten American democracy.
Adolf Hitler is Trump's role model. Trump uses words from Nazi Germany. Trump poses an existential threat to democracy. The gravest threat that America faces in the entire world right now is Donald Trump. Boy, how'd the temperature get so high? Thank goodness we have a responsible elder statesman like Joe Biden to tell us to lower the temperature. No one, not one person in America has done more to raise the temperature of our politics and to impel people to try to assassinate Donald Trump than Joe Biden. Not one person is more responsible for the inflammatory rhetoric that would impel people to do this. Kamala Harris came out. She made a statement, a disgusting statement on Saturday night. With all the perfunctory words, oh, yes, we're sorry. Thank goodness he wasn't that hurt. They blew off part of his ear. Oh, thank goodness he wasn't that hurt. 15 degrees, his brains would have been on the stage. Oh, but okay, that's good. We're moving on. What a senseless act of violence. That's what she said. That was the word that really set me off and set a lot of people off, I think. Because it wasn't senseless. It was based on false premises, but it wasn't senseless. It was very sensible. It was very logical to try to assassinate Donald Trump if you believe what Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have been telling you for years. And not just the two of them, basically the entire Democrat establishment and the media establishment, but up to and including Kamala Harris and up to and including Joe Biden. If you really believe that Donald Trump represents an existential threat to our democracy, the gravest threat in the world to our republic, and that he's the second coming of Adolf Hitler, then it makes absolute perfect sense to assassinate him. Or what? Or is Joe Biden saying, no, if I had the chance to stop Hitler, I wouldn't have? No, we can destroy our democracy, destroy our whole country. It's fine. It's no big deal. That doesn't justify taking any sort of extraordinary measure up to and including assassination. No, it's not what they're saying. A Hitler comparison or the invocation of an existential threat to the country justifies in the popular perception and is intended to justify ending the existence of the threat. So senseless. How did our temperature get so high? It's not just the politicians, the media. The media are just as culpable. I suppose in some ways they have less direct power, but they've got broader power. They've got broader reach, and they've been doing this for years. So the first response of the media when this attack occurred was to downplay it. LA Times. This is the Sunday Times, so this isn't just the first headline that showed up on the website. This is hours after this happened. Sunday Times, Trump is rushed off stage in rally shooting. Trump is rushed off stage. I don't see the word assassination anywhere here. You know what I do see? Right here, actually higher up on the page than the assassination attempt, I see Project 2025 GOP platform set to take on possible Biden stand-in. Project 2025, a Heritage Foundation project, which is very good, but which Trump doesn't really have anything to do with and which he's disavowed. Project 2025, that gets the high placement, that gets the specific mention. The assassination attempt, no, he's just rushed off stage. Washington Post, Trump taken away after loud noises. CNN, Secret Service rushes Trump off stage after he falls at rally. After he falls. That's just a lie. He went down. He didn't fall down. He went down because he had been shot in the ear. And then he chose to go down to stop from potentially being shot again. Trump rushes him off stage after he falls. NBC, the former president could be seen clutching his ear after popping noises were heard at the campaign rally in Butler, Pennsylvania. Anyone else? Who do we have? USA Today, Trump removed from stage by Secret Service after loud noises startles the former president. He was startled. Newsweek, MAGA responds with outrage after Donald Trump injured at Pennsylvania rally. This is the absolute peak of Republicans' pounce. Republicans' pounce is a type of headline that the left runs when the left does something evil or the left covers up for something evil, and the conservatives and the Republicans and the right criticize the evil thing. Then the story is not the evil thing. The story is responding to the evil thing. MAGA responds with that. That's the story, right? A president and current presidential frontrunner is within a hair's breadth of being assassinated on stage. The story is MAGA responds with outrage, right? I don't think so. Much more to say. First, though, I want to thank our friends over at Policy Genius. Go to policygenius.com/Knowles. Life is unpredictable, as I think we see every day. Good life insurance plan gives your family a financial safety net to protect against some of the unknowns. Policy Genius is the country's leading online insurance marketplace. With Policy Genius, you can find life insurance policies that start at just $292 per year for $1 million of coverage. Some options offer same-day approval and avoid unnecessary medical exams. Policy Genius's technology makes comparing life insurance quotes from America's top insurers easy in just a few clicks. You already have a life insurance policy through work, but that might not offer enough protection for your family's needs, and it may not follow you if you leave your job. Policy Genius has licensed agents who can help you find the best fit for your needs. Policy Genius works for you, not the insurance companies. That means they are not incentivized to recommend one insurer over another, so you can trust their guidance. Get peace of mind by finding the right life insurance with Policy Genius. Go to policygenius.com/Knowles, K-N-W-L-E-S, or click the link in the description to get your free life insurance quotes and see how much you could save. That is policygenius.com/Knowles. The media, when they're not downplaying, when they're not pretending that it wasn't an assassination attempt, it was loud noises, it was some popping, then if you were in any way tempted to give the media credit for any integrity, which I was not, but if you mistakenly were, that inclination would have probably dissipated within a few hours when George Stephanopoulos, Bill Clinton's former chief propagandist in the White House, who pretends to be a journalist on television now, a nonpartisan, disinterested journalist, who, after Biden was trying to stop the fallout from his disastrous debate performance, who did he choose to do the interview? Of course, he chose George Stephanopoulos. He is the dean of Democrat propagandists. He interviews, what's that woman's name? Martha Raddatz, I think, on ABC this week. And they immediately launch into blaming the Republicans.
President Trump and his supporters have contributed to this violent rhetoric as well.
Well, absolutely, George. We were just looking back this morning at some of the things that former President Trump has said. He warned last March of potential death and destruction if he were charged by the Manhattan District Attorney. Our country is being destroyed as they tell us to be peaceful. Trump in January warned of bedlam in the country if the criminal charges against him succeeded. And of course, in March, he said, now, if I don't get elected, it's going to be a bloodbath for the whole. That's going to be the least of it. It's going to be a bloodbath for the country. That will be the least of it. He said he was partly joking and that was taken out of context. But those are indeed his words. And you have heard it from supporters as well. And supporters are certainly in some parts angry. And let's remember January 6th. In so many ways,
let's remember
campaign,
January 6th.
January 6th will probably be in the background after yesterday's event.
First, there was an outright lie in her so-called reporting when she said, and famously Donald Trump said there would be a bloodbath if he weren't reelected, though that he says that was taken out of context. That of any rhetoric you ever want to say was taken out of context, the word bloodbath has multiple meanings. One meaning is an economic meaning. An economic crisis. Donald Trump said there would be a bloodbath specifically in an economic context. He was talking about the importation of cars. He was talking about the automobile industry. You can criticize any politician's rhetoric all you like. That is just a complete lie. To insinuate that the term bloodbath there did not have an economic meaning. Then, of course, all the rest of it, though. Well, and look, so someone, after we've all spent years calling Trump a Nazi and saying he represents an existential threat to the Republic, someone very nearly blew his head off on stage. And when you think about it, it's really Trump's fault, isn't it? These ghouls, these disgusting cretins, absolutely revolting behavior. Even I have such low expectations for people like George Stephanopoulos and Martha Raddatz and all the rest of them. My expectations of them are absolutely in the gutter, and they've somehow managed to fall below my expectations of them. Revolting behavior. This goes so far beyond, she was wearing a short dress in that dark alleyway, wasn't she? This goes so far beyond victim blaming. A national trauma, in some ways, already occurred, but a profound historic national trauma was about 15 degrees of a head turn away from occurring because someone almost blew off the head of a former president and current presidential frontrunner. And their reaction, their first reaction is, well, you know, he kind of had it coming, didn't he? When you think about it, it's really the Republicans who are violent. Disgusting. These people make me want to vomit. Then we have David Frum. David Frum from The Atlantic. David Frum, he was a Bush speechwriter, I guess. He was kind of some junior Bush speechwriter, but he's one of those, Republicans, but not that kind of Republican. He's a Republican whose job it is to write in liberal magazines to defend Democrats. And in The Atlantic, his headline 2 days after the shooting, the gunman, maybe one day after the shooting, the gunman and the would-be dictator, violence stalks the president who has rejoiced in violence to others. He had it coming, He's a would-be dictator. Someone should probably do it again. Someone should succeed this time. That's what he's saying. That's what The Atlantic is saying. They don't learn a thing. And then, of course, we have Jen Psaki, former spokesman for the White House under Joe Biden, who says, Trump, by the grace of God, didn't have his head blown off on stage. A Trump supporter was murdered. Multiple Trump supporters were critically injured by this gunman. This, after years of additional political violence against Democrats. We remember Steve Scalise, the Republican congressman, nearly killed by a left-wing shooter at the congressional baseball game. We remember Justice Brett Kavanaugh nearly murdered in his home by a left-wing operative who traveled across the country to murder him so that the Dobbs decision overturning Roe v. Wade wouldn't come out. Years and years of this. Many other instances that we don't need to get into now. And Jen Psaki says, the real victims here are the journalists.
For anyone out there who has a platform, who thinks the moment right now is to be political and attack the other party, you are feeding into the danger. You are making it more likely there's retaliation. I'm incredibly scared. I'm scared for journalists. I'm scared for people who have public platforms of all parties. And that's how people should feel. It's really
about the the journalists who have called Trump Hitler for 8 years and said he represents an existential threat to the country and established a perfectly sensible premise from which someone might try to blow his head off or go out and murder Trump supporters. All of those people, they're the ones we should really be worried about, right? And they're the real victims. Well, the establishment media scramble to bury the facts. We continue to shine a light on the reality that they desperately want to hide. The importance of truth-telling has never been more critical. This is why what we're doing here, I think, matters a lot. Why your support is crucial. Go to dailywire.com/subscribe right now. Become a member and join us in the fight for America and the future that our country deserves. The time to take action is here. Go to dailywire.com/subscribe and join today. 8 years of this. 8 years of it. And you're going to hear for the next 3 months, 4 months, when the media have to acknowledge that someone tried to assassinate Trump, you're going to hear, well, this was a senseless act of violence. Little trip down memory lane.
Of course, Trump is a Nazi time again.
Let's deal with Hitler, okay?
I don't think it's hyperbolic to say that. I mean, that is Mussolini, Hitler-like language.
Trump's affinity for Hitler was always covered under an umbrella of his stupidity.
Echoing Hitler's words.
Listen to this.
Well, Hitler was duly elected.
That's right. Echoing the hateful rhetoric of Adolf Hitler.
It echoes Hitler. That's the kind of language Hitler used in Mein Kampf.
About vermin and Hitler and Mussolini.
That's a horrifying clip. That's a fascist clip.
Just going full on Hitler.
It's from Hitler's Germany.
We just need to say, for the record, that the term vermin was really effectively used by Adolf Hitler.
Echo dictators like Hitler.
With language evoking authoritarian figures like Adolf Hitler. And
Adolf Hitler.
Donald Trump parroted the autocratic language of Adolf Hitler.
Talk about the brilliance of Hitler's generals.
Correct.
General Kelly, yes.
6 days before the shooting, the New Republic, which is one of the most prestigious and established magazines on the left, ran a cover story and a cover, American Fascism, what it would look like, and it's a picture of Trump as Hitler, and he's got Hitler's little mustache, and he's got Hitler's haircut. There are a bunch of writers, some of whom, one of those names I recognize. He's a kind of a punchline professor at Yale University who spends most of his time going on, MSNBC and the like. But that's it. It's the cover. This is Trump's Hitler, and this is American Fascism. And the New Republic defended the cover and said, There are plenty of people who'd excuse Hitler's behavior in campaigns as kind of normal, but we're going to fight it. How are you going to fight it? Hitler is the symbol of absolute evil in modernity. Hitler is an historical figure as well, and a rather nasty one, and did lots of evil things. But Hitler is also a symbol. He is the symbol in the modern consciousness of absolute evil. Absolute evil for which anything would be justified, up to and including assassination, to stop it. That's why people have debates. Not only I'd go back in time and kill Hitler. If you could go in a time machine, would you go kill Hitler? But people say, if you could go back in a time machine, would you kill baby Hitler? You know, a little innocent baby. During the 2016 race, Jeb Bush joked about this. He said, I would kill baby Hitler. Ben got in trouble once. He was at the March for Life. He said, I would not kill baby Hitler, but I hate Hitler, but, you know, he's a baby and all that. To compare someone to Hitler is to say this person deserves assassination, and assassination would be justified. New Republic ran that cover 6 days prior to the shooting. When I saw that, I reacted. I said, you know, the left is reckless, because I understood how dangerous it was. The left is reckless. The left is dishonest. The left, but don't underestimate how goofy the left is. So goofy, so absurd to compare Trump to Hitler. And David Marcus, good conservative columnist, he responded, he said, don't call it goofy. This is going to get somebody killed. 6 days later. 6 days later. Rick Wilson, he's one of the founders of the Lincoln Project. You remember, these are the supposed Republicans who they couldn't get hired in Republican campaigns anymore, so they started to work for Democrats, and they were the anti-Trump Republican consultants. And one of them, you know, got pinched from a young, and you know, they're a real disreputable lot, all of them. But one of them, you know, because their argument is we need to restore civility to our politics. You know, we can't have this ruffian Donald Trump who's so vulgar and such a threat. Here's Rick Wilson talking about Donald Trump on MSNBC.
The donor class can't just sit back on the sidelines and say, oh, well, don't worry, this will all work itself out. They're still going to have to go out and put a bullet in Donald Trump.
They got to go put a bullet in him. And they did, by the way. Deadline, which is not exactly a right-wing outlet, this is a Hollywood trade outlet. Deadline, 5 days before the assassination attempt, reports about a meeting between President Biden and his finance advisors, his donors. Says, having repeatedly said over the past week that the live face-off on CNN with Trump was a bad night, POTUS, this is Joe Biden himself, today added, so we're done talking about the debate. It's time to put Trump in a bullseye. And they did. And they did. They all did, didn't they? Even beyond the news media, even beyond the elected politicians, we've seen this in entertainment for years now, going back to 2017. You remember Kathy Griffin? Kathy Griffin, the alleged comedian, went viral for holding a trip of President Trump's bloodied and decapitated head. And then President Trump was nearly decapitated. A little different aim would have blown off his head. And even, thank God that he survived, that now iconic photo of him standing up, fight, 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 American flag there. He has blood streaming down his face. So this is the real-life version of what Kathy Griffin was calling for. She very nearly got it. Unfortunately for her, she desired Trump to be assassinated. She represented that desire. And unfortunately for her, he survived. But that's what she was calling for. In Central Park in New York, there's a very famous theatrical series, Shakespeare in the Park. During the summers, you'll have these brilliant plays and actors and all the very, well, maybe I shouldn't say brilliant. They're at least very prestigious, and they go and they put on the shows in the park. Rather than having to go to Broadway or to the opera or something, you can go see them in the park. And so in 2017, they put on a performance of Julius Caesar in the park, and the show was actually about all these modern stagings of Shakespeare. This context was Donald Trump's assassination.
It's an actor dressed to look just like President Donald Trump as he's assassinated on stage. Look as his character is stabbed to death. And there's no mistaking the Trump connection. Check out the unbuttoned overcoat and red tie that hangs over his waist.
Check it out. We got to lower the temperature, man. This is not who we are, you know? We got to come together, man. We're friends. Come on, man. All these, listen to George Stephanopoulos and Martha Raddatz, all these Republicans, it's really the Republicans. Because sometimes they'll say things like, we need to secure our border, or we need lower inflation, or we shouldn't be starting new wars around the world, or we should, they say all these really inflammatory, evil, violent things. Or even on January 6th, the worst day in the history of the world, why, by golly, a man in a horn hat might get a private police escorted tour of the Capitol. That's the worst day in history. Some Midwestern granny takes a selfie in the Capitol Rotunda. The only person killed in the political violence of that day is a Trump supporter. Noticing a theme. But we need to lower the temperature, man. We need to unite, don't you think? Can you believe these irresponsible Republicans? The Democrats, the left, has almost uniformly called for Trump's assassination for 8 years, implicitly and sometimes explicitly. And they came within. And a turn of a head that is, I won't say inexplicable. It's not explicable by natural explanations. That turned just a nanosecond before that saved Trump's life. It can't be explained by probability in natural actions. And that was the difference between the Democrats getting what they've been asking for 8 years and not. We have new footage emerging of the shooter. We haven't even talked yet really about the shooter. And we'll get to the shooter. But there are more important questions first, even than who the shooter is. The shooter had his head blown off, so he's no longer a threat. How did the shooter get onto this roof? Well, we were told it was outside the security perimeter. How big was the security perimeter? The shooter was only, 150 yards away? It's not that far. This is a really small town. It's a town of 12,000 people. How many big buildings are there in this town? 3? The U.S. Secret Service wasn't able to secure all of those buildings? Well, was it local police that was supposed to secure the buildings? How did this guy get up there? Did anyone notice him? Yes. We had, when I was broadcasting on Saturday night, we heard from eyewitnesses who said, yeah, I called this in. I saw a guy with a rifle climbing up to a roof. I told police. He later said he told Secret Service. And then the guy was just up there for minutes while Trump was speaking. He said, I couldn't understand why they didn't pull Trump off the stage. Now there's new video. There's a crowd of people watching this guy with a rifle climb up to the roof, filming him. Presumably, I think they're saying, reporting this to the police, and nothing happens.
He was doing the job. I wouldn't even be doing this. I'd be at some beautiful place to support this ocean. The
Look, they're all pointing.
The Atlantic, maybe the Pacific.
Yeah, someone's on top of the roof. Look. There he is right there. Right there, see him? He's laying down. See him?
Yeah, he's laying down.
And son, I'm here with you fighting like hell to get a Senate.
What's happening?
And to make sure we take back the White House, because if we do, we're going to make America better than ever before. We're going to make it.
Yeah, look. There he is.
Easy, because we have millions and millions of people in our country that shouldn't be here. Dangerous people. Criminals. We have criminals. We have drug dealers. We have people that should not be here.
Right on the roof.
It's much tougher than it happens.
You went right on the roof again.
And you can see him. You can see the guy on the roof. You can hear officer. He's on the roof. There's a crowd of people observing this, filming this, calling this in. It's not far. You can see they're filming Trump on stage over there. This is a small town. This is a small distance. And this guy's just allowed to be on the roof with a gun for minutes? What? The timing of the assassination attempt, thank God unsuccessful, is a little odd too. Just before the Republican National Convention, just before Trump officially becomes the Republican nominee. 2 days before. The last chance to take him out. What happened? There was a lot of time. What happened? According to the U.S. Secret Service, it's the local police's fault because they were supposed to secure that rooftop. The U.S. Secret Service was supposed to secure within the security perimeter, and then the local police, I guess the local police in Butler, Pennsylvania. What can you imagine what the budget for that department is? $50 a year. I don't know. You're talking about a small town police department is being tasked with protecting the president of the United States, technically outside of the security perimeter, but we're only talking about 150 yards away with a handful of buildings of any size whatsoever. What? Then, around 6:10 p.m., we're told a local police officer climbed a ladder onto the roof, came face to face with the would-be assassin. The assassin pointed a rifle at him. This is according to the Associated Press, hearing from law enforcement. And then the cop just climbed back down the ladder. What? And then, after the would-be assassin fired off at least a few rounds, it looks like more than a few rounds, then Secret Service was able to blow his brains out. Who gave the call? Here's what I got a lot of questions. Who gave the call to leave crucial security in this relatively small town to local law enforcement? Who made that call? I don't think it was the agents on the ground. So which bureaucrat within the U.S. Secret Service, that is to say within the Biden administration, made that call? Was it a resource issue? Was it just that they didn't have enough agents? Why was Trump not given a sufficient number of Secret Service agents? Why was Donald Trump, the man that the left uniformly has been calling to assassinate for 8 years, a former president, current presidential frontrunner, why was he not given enough Secret Service agents? If it was a resource issue, that they had to rely on local police with no budget, very few officers relative to the federal government to secure the area. There are some reports that the snipers had sights on the shooter before. Those seem totally unconfirmed to me. But if that were the case, because enough people are talking about it, if that were the case, who gives the call to blow his brains out? What took so long? What took so long that a crowd on the ground could see this guy, film this guy, call him into police, and minutes go by, Trump's still on stage, and he's allowed to pop off rounds and kill people and nearly assassinate President Trump? What happened? My favorite comment on Friday is from Isaac F.N. Ghost. When he pumped his fist with that look of defiance on his face, it almost brought me to tears. Never been more motivated to vote for this man than I am right now. Of course, I think a lot of people are thinking that. Joe Biden, during his meandering and mostly pointless statement, a couple of statements now I suppose he's made, Biden said that he's directed the U.S. Secret Service director to investigate what happened.
Here's what we're going to do. First, Mr. Trump, as a former president and nominee of the Republican Party, already receives a heightened level of security. And I've been consistent in my direction of the Secret Service to provide him with every resource, capability, and protective measure necessary to ensure his continued safety. Second, I've directed the head of the Secret Service to review all security measures for the Republican National Convention, which is scheduled to start tomorrow. And third, I've directed an independent review of the national security at yesterday's rally to assess exactly what happened. And we'll share the results of that independent review with the American people as well.
Good. That's good. The Secret Service director, who completely failed at protecting President Trump, she's going to be directed to, make sure she extra special protects the RNC, where virtually every prominent Republican politician, maybe media figure, I'll be going there tomorrow, will be in Milwaukee. Good. Doesn't that make you feel much safer? Any direction from Joe Biden right now to the head of the Secret Service, short of directing this Secret Service director to pack up her desk, is an invitation for another assassination attempt on Trump. Who is this person? It's a woman named Kimberly Cheadle. She was appointed Secret Service director by Joe Biden. There's reporting from CBS News back in May of 2023 that she's made it a top priority to diversify the agency by having 30% female recruits by 2030. That's important. We need a DEI Secret Service. That's a good way to get presidents assassinated. You have a DEI. You don't prioritize skill, merit, lethality, physical strength and stature. You don't prioritize any of that. You just make sure that we got to diversify. We need equity and inclusion. We need 30% women in the Secret Service. Women known for their physical strength. It is perverse. This is almost a side point, though I suppose it does relate to this story pretty directly. It is perverse and scandalous that we permit women into the U.S. Secret Service to be protecting the president for a couple reasons. One, the reason that everyone's focusing on right now is because women are physically weaker than men. Women are physically shorter than men. They're not. It was absurd. Some people observed that it looked like one of the agents, a female agent, couldn't even properly holster her gun. It looked weak. But even putting that aside, Trump is what, 6'2", 6'3"? He's a big guy, broad frame. You can't have a woman protecting him. It won't work. Unless she's going to walk around on stilts, it's not going to work. But the Biden administration wants to prioritize DEI and affirmative action and a bunch of liberal nonsense ideology over doing the job of the Secret Service, which is to protect the president, among other things. That's the most notable purpose of the Secret Service. So that's what everyone's focusing on, that women are just physically weaker and slower than men. And women have many qualities, many wonderful, admirable qualities that men don't have. Women are better at plenty of things than men are. But being physically strong isn't one of them. Okay, that's what everyone's focusing on. And sure, that's true. But to me, that's almost a secondary point. Because then you're hearing some people, even so-called conservatives, saying, well, look, no, we just need to make sure that it's a uniform test for everyone. And so if women can meet the physical requirements, which they pretty much never can, but if some woman can, then she should serve on the Secret Service detail. No, that's not the point. Part of the reason that it is perverse for women to be in the Secret Service is because it is perverse for a country to expect a woman to take a bullet for a man. That's wrong. I never want a woman taking a bullet for me, ever. That's wrong. Men are supposed to protect women, not the other way around. And if you're a left-wing, radical left egalitarian, and you think there's no difference between men and women, and you think that a man can become a woman and it's all the same, man, then I understand why you might think women should be taking bullets for men. I think that's a deeply misogynistic view, to use a popular word, but I understand how you could come to that erroneous conclusion. But if you believe that men and women are different, if you really believe that, then you can't just stop at, they're weird. Or, men shouldn't play women's sports. Why not? Why shouldn't men play women's sports? Why couldn't you at least get a really, really weak man to play in the really best women's league? If they're, then you equal out the physical. Or do you really believe men and women are different? Then you believe that some things are more appropriate for men than for women and vice versa. Then you believe that men and women have to act a little bit differently sometimes and sometimes women, they have to do tough things, and sometimes men have to do tougher things than women. But in this case, if anyone's going to take a bullet for anyone, if anyone's going to protect anyone, it's going to be the men protecting the women. This is how we've operated in our country pretty much forever. The Secret Service has admitted women for some decades now, but still somewhat recent. And we've only had women in combat, fully open combat positions since 2015. Why is it that we didn't permit that before? It's not just physical differences. It's because if we recognize that men and women are different, if we recognize things like honor and nature and reality, chivalry, then those are the conclusions that we will draw. There's some breaking news happening now. Judge Aileen Cannon, I'm being told, in Florida, has dismissed the Trump classified documents case. This was maybe the strongest. I thought all the cases against Trump were ridiculous. This is maybe the strongest one. Breaking news. Judge Cannon has dismissed the documents case. We haven't even gotten to the shooter. I'll give you what we know, because I want to be comprehensive in today's show. It's very important. Things are changing quickly. The information is coming out like a fire hose. What we know about this guy is he's 20 years old, and he was a registered Republican, but the only party that he ever donated money to were the Democrats, a progressive group among the Democrats. So we don't know. In terms of his politics, it looks like it's split down the middle. The Republicans, or the Democrats rather, can point to his Republican registration and say, see, he was a right-winger. The Republicans can point to his sole record of donations to progressive Democrats and say, see, he was a left-winger, and that's all we know. That's all we know about him. President Biden has directed an investigation, to be led by the FBI, to be led by all of these agencies that have spent years now lying about Donald Trump, colluding with Democrats. The FBI and DOJ colluded with Democrats to cook the books and make up a bunch of nonsense on Donald Trump colluding with the Russians. That was at the beginning of Trump's presidential career. Undermining his administration, now this major and very difficult to explain security lapse just 2 days before the RNC. We need, obviously, an investigation. Who do we trust to do it? Who do we trust to conduct it? What conclusions would we believe? The rest of the show continues now. You do not want to miss it. Become a member. Use code Knowles at checkout for 2 months free on all annual plans.